Specific life moments exist that seem oddly weighty despite no drama occurring. You enter a busy shopping center, a loud terminal, or a dense market, and abruptly, an internal tension builds. It's not fear in the typical way, nor is it peril. It resembles an unseen force that quietly grows, the type that makes you long to fade into the surroundings or exit for a brief second of peace. The majority of individuals nearby appear totally okay. They are joking, chatting, moving through the din as if it's absent, yet for you, something seems wrong. The atmosphere feels denser, the noise feels keener, the motion feels excessive. You grow conscious of each footstep, each noise, each person passing too near. What causes this in me? Why do packed locations feel so overpowering? Why am I exhausted before anything has occurred? If you have ever asked that, you are not isolated. And this sensation isn't odd, it is human. The reasoning behind individuals who dislike busy areas is much more profound and more significant than most assume. It isn't merely a choice. It is not only introversion. It isn't related to being timid or socially awkward. Numerous individuals who are self-assured, accomplished, articulate, and outgoing still have difficulty in dense places. And on close inspection, you start to see a key point. Packed locations do not just flood your senses, they flood your sense of identity. Allow me to guide you into the profound levels of this. There is a cause for the mind's reaction. It starts with something primitive, something wired into our neurology long before contemporary life began. Through much of human time, existing in dense, erratic settings meant reduced control of your environment. The brain adapted to monitor motion, noise, and possible signs of risk. Now, we don't encounter those exact threats, but the programming endures. When excessive activity occurs simultaneously, the brain's warning mechanism silently activates. It is not panic. It is watchfulness. It is the mind murmuring, "Stay alert, too much is going on," even when nothing is truly amiss. This is the reason a person who dislikes packed areas isn't feeble or excessively delicate. They are perceptive. Their neurological system detects nuances. Their awareness is keener, their inner experience is more dynamic. And when the outside environment gets noisy and disordered, the inside environment responds. That is just the exterior. There is something more profound, more individual, tied to identity, feelings, and how one deciphers the world. Individuals who dislike busy locations frequently possess a specific type of mind. Contemplative, insightful, watchful, and emotionally conscious. They are inclined to profound thought. They see details others overlook. They experience feelings more strongly, and they prize significance above din. When this type of mind is put in settings filled with ceaseless movement, the brain becomes noisier, not calmer. Each passing person seems like a cue. Each noise seems like a new idea to handle. The mass of people becomes a knot of sensations, feelings, and anticipations. It is not the individuals who overpower, it is the stimuli. Your brain was not designed to take in that volume of cues simultaneously. And there is one more thing, something few individuals discuss, the psychology of personal area. Some individuals feel at ease when they can manage their proximity to others. Not from a dislike of people, but from a need for mental room to process. Personal area is not simply bodily for them, it is emotional. A dense setting reduces that area. It condenses your thinking. It pushes on the unseen border that your mind depends on to feel stable. And when that border fails, even a serene person can feel intellectually trapped. It is nuanced, it is silent, but it is genuine. There's also a profoundly symbolic event occurring. A packed location symbolizes global demands. The noise, the stress, the constant motion. And for a person with a reflective, inward-looking mind, those settings feel like the world requiring focus immediately. It is akin to being drawn in countless directions while standing still. You begin to sense a detachment from yourself. Not due to the crowd being hazardous, but because it silences the internal voice you trust to guide you. Some individuals require quiet to perceive themselves. And busy areas feel like the antithesis of quiet. Yet here is a point most individuals overlook. People who dislike crowds frequently matured being highly conscious of their setting. Perhaps they mastered sensing the atmosphere quickly. Perhaps they detected faint emotional signals from others. Perhaps they existed in settings where vigilance was essential, though everything seemed fine externally. When you mature like that, you form a pattern of scanning, deciphering, forecasting. It turns involuntary. And within a crowd, these skills intensify until they are draining. It is like having too many mental tabs active in the mind. Nobody else perceives it, but you sense each one. There is also a philosophical perspective, a thing that transcends psychology. Packed locations recall how quickly the world is turning, everyone heading somewhere. Everyone hurrying, everyone absorbed in their own existence. It causes you to ponder your position in the midst of it. It sparks a subtle form of existential consciousness. Not theatrical, simply there. And for one who feels profoundly, that consciousness can be overpowering. Because you start to ask, where is my role in this? Why does the sound seem remote yet burdensome? Why does this space full of individuals make me feel more solitary than a vacant room ever could? That is the contradiction. Crowds do not consistently make you feel linked. Sometimes they make you feel unseen. But being unseen is not the true problem. It is the lack of significance. People who dislike crowds frequently search for settings where exchanges feel authentic, where discussions feel sincere, where feelings feel true, where being there feels like more than ambient sound. In a crowd, all things feel superficial, hurried, adrift. Not because individuals are superficial, but because the setting compels everyone to proceed too fast to be genuine. And if you are a person who prizes authenticity, that hurried dynamic feels incorrect. It feels emotionally empty. It seems like you are encircled by movement but deprived of significance. There's one more thing. Something that exists below the surface of conduct. Individuals who dislike busy locations are frequently exceptionally self-conscious. They understand their feelings. They perceive when their energy wanes. They are aware of their emotional boundaries. They grasp that their mind fails to flourish in disorder. Self-consciousness is a power, not a defect. And understanding which settings exhaust you is one of the most stable things an individual can know about themselves. But many individuals misinterpret this sensation. They believe it makes them unsociable or odd. They believe they must correct it. They believe they ought to be more like all the others. But this is the reality. Disliking busy locations does not mean you are imperfect. It means you are human in a particular manner, a considerate manner. It signifies your mind is more aligned with emotional cues than surrounding din. It signifies you handle things profoundly. It signifies you prize being present over strain. It signifies your inner experience is vivid, perceptive, living. Some individuals link with the world via noise, others link via quiet. Both are human. Yet the world frequently anticipates all to flourish in the identical setting: noisy, quick, disordered, communal. And when a person fails to fit that template, they believe something is amiss with them. But nothing is amiss. It is merely a different mental cadence. Individuals who dislike busy locations frequently experience life at a more profound frequency. More gradual, more contemplative, more watchful. They sense the world more than they view it. They heed more than they talk. They ponder before they act. They take in details others ignore. And that type of mind does not fare well with excessive stimulation. Because excessive stimulation is not just perceptual. It is emotional, but here is a key point. Unease in crowds is not solely about being overpowered. Sometimes it is about limits. When an area is filled with unknown people, you forfeit the capacity to manage your setting. You cannot forecast what people will do. You cannot decipher every motive. You cannot move without restriction. The mind favors patterns and crowds break patterns. Too many erratic factors. Too little individual control. Too many unobserved stresses. And the body responds, not with alarm but with tightness. Not with fright but with discomfort. Not with peril but with misplacement. It is like your mind murmurs, "This is not my cadence. This fails to match my inner tempo." And that murmur lingers with you. But there is one final layer to this. A silent mental fact that many individuals find only in later years. People who dislike busy locations frequently have deep internal worlds. Their ideas have profundity, their emotions have subtlety. Their creativity is dynamic, their contemplations are ceaseless. Their emotional cosmos is filled with symbolism, significance, and tacit comprehension. And the external world occasionally feels too noisy for that internal world to draw breath. Thus, when you put a person like that into a busy, loud setting, the inner world does not vanish, it gets stifled. And that suppression feels like a sort of unease that is difficult to describe to others, but you sense it. You sense it in your core, your brain, your respiration, your ideas. And you ask why? Yet the reality is straightforward. Your internal world requires room. And crowds condense that room until it seems more difficult to reach yourself. It is not theatrical. It is not unsound. It is not a defect. It is merely a different mode of existence. And grasping it, truly grasping it, can alter how you view yourself. You are not odd. You are not fractured. You are not excessively delicate. You are a person whose mind heeds more than it yells. Someone who senses the world rather than hurrying through it. Someone who prizes emotional genuineness over din and movement. Someone who requires room to remain linked to themselves. And that is a power. And there is a fascinating thing that occurs when you grasp this aspect of yourself. You start to perceive that your unease in busy locations is not arbitrary. It is not abrupt. It is not illogical. It is the mind safeguarding something significant. Your concentration, your vitality, your emotional balance. Because each individual has a native capacity for stimulus. Some reach their limit gradually, some reach their limit immediately. If you are the type of person who gets exhausted in crowds, it is because your brain processes more than you know. You are not just taking in noise or motion. You are detecting emotional inflections, faint expressions, changes in posture, levels of stress in the atmosphere, and pieces of dialogue your ears were not intended to hear. To put it differently, you process existence in high definition, and high-definition minds get tired more quickly. This clarifies why you may feel wary after being in a bustling market or dense event, even when nothing tense occurred. The exhaustion is not from the location. It is from the processing. You feel as if you have completed an inner marathon, though your physical form hardly stirred. But here is something more profound. People who dislike busy settings frequently have a complicated relationship with focus. Not the focus they get. The focus they provide. Their focus is specific, deliberate, significant. They do not allot it arbitrarily or offhandedly. They commit it cautiously, like an emotional payment. And in busy locations, that payment gets dispersed. It is like their mind is compelled to offer small bits of focus to all things simultaneously. And that division feels abnormal. Some individuals feel invigorated by outside disorder. It offers them something to rebound from, something to equal. Others feel exhausted by it because it weakens their inner lucidity. If you're a person who feels exhausted, it is because your lucidity is more important to you than the din surrounding you. There is also an emotional aspect that many individuals find hard to articulate. It is the silent strain that arises from being encircled by many individuals who are not emotionally linked to you. People instinctively seek linkage, comprehension, closeness, but busy locations seldom provide that. They provide nearness without linkage, attendance without closeness, din without significance. For a person who prizes emotional harmony, that separation feels burdensome. Being encircled by hundreds of individuals yet linked to none can spark a silent, concealed feeling of isolation. Not due to being solitary, but due to being encircled by people who are too occupied, too remote, too absorbed in their own lives to genuinely notice you, or anyone. And if you have ever been in a crowd and abruptly felt more alone than you do in a vacant room, you are sensing one of the most ignored mental realities. Solitude has almost nothing to do with physical separation. It has everything to do with emotional attunement. You can be solitary and feel serene. You can be encircled and feel unnoticed. This is the reason some individuals favor quiet settings. Not because they dislike people, but because they pursue authentic linkage over communal attendance. They desire discussions that signify something, moments that feel stable. Settings that do not overpower their emotional awareness. One more ignored facet is this. Busy settings diminish predictability. You lose awareness of where your area starts and another's finishes, so much motion occurring simultaneously. So many changing paths, erratic noises, broken dialogues, abrupt halts, fast alterations. Your brain favors patterns and crowds eliminate patterns. It is like attempting to read a page where each line shifts. Your eyes do not know where to settle, so they continue scanning, looking for a stability that never comes, and that hunt becomes exhausting. But individuals seldom discuss this more profound exhaustion, the exhaustion that arises from heightened consciousness. Some minds are just constructed to sense the world with more perceptiveness, and perceptiveness is not frailty. It is profundity. When a person says they dislike busy locations, what they are frequently attempting to state is, I sense excessively in these settings. Everything impacts me simultaneously. I require mental room to operate well. I am not detached. I am overpowered by the amount I can perceive. And if you have ever sensed this, you know it is not a decision. It is not a partiality. It is a silent emotional reality. There is also a mental factor tied to identity. People with contemplative or inward-looking natures frequently build a sense of self upon internal conditions. Ideas, emotions, private realizations, rather than outside social settings. When put into a busy setting, their sense of self gets harder to reach. It is silenced by the din, motion, demands, and social strain of being near so many individuals at once. In plainer terms, your internal world gets harder to perceive. And since your internal world is your guide for life, losing touch with it, even briefly, can feel unsettling. That disturbance does not appear theatrical from the exterior. It appears like silent retreat, emotional remoteness, or the impulse to depart soon. But internally, it feels like the brain losing its direction. Some individuals require solitude to recalibrate that compass. Others require predictability. Others require emotional security. Busy settings offer none of these. But there is one more thing, something nuanced, that is seldom mentioned. People who dislike crowds frequently have a greater consciousness of social energy. They can perceive stress in a space without a word being spoken. They can sense when a person close by is tense, annoyed, or restless. They can detect the emotional climate of a location just by passing through it. And crowds are filled with emotional paradoxes, enthusiasm, tension, annoyance, restlessness, diversion, all combined. When you are perceptive to emotional flows, moving through a crowd feels like moving through surges of unseen energy. None of it is aimed at you, but you sense it regardless. This emotional consciousness is a power. It lets you link more profoundly, see below the exterior, and grasp people in ways others cannot. But in a crowd, that power becomes an overload. Envision having a microphone that detects every noise in the area. Now envision entering a stadium. That is what emotional perceptiveness feels like in busy locations. There's also a cognitive level to this, something tied to focus. Individuals who dislike busy locations frequently have minds that flourish in focused settings. Their finest concepts arrive when the world near them is silent. Their inventiveness moves when they are solitary. Their thought deepens when interruptions are absent. Busy locations break that focus, not in a theatrical way, but in a nuanced way that detaches you from your native cadence. You may still operate, still move, still maintain a discussion, but your brain is not completely there. It is divided between managing the setting and handling it. That division makes a low-grade exhaustion that grows silently until you must withdraw. And withdrawing is not evasion, it is recovery. People believe that disliking crowds means evading life, but in truth, it means protecting your mental lucidity so you can interact with life in a more profound, more significant way. What exhausts you is not the attendance of people, it is the lack of emotional and mental room. And here is a silent reality most individuals never grasp. Some minds become noisier and quiet. Some hearts grow clearer and calm. Some natures glitter most in serene settings. The world frequently honors noise. Large personalities, noisy voices, packed locations, ceaseless motion. But not all genius is noisy. Some of the most perceptive, Emotionally sharp individuals are those who favor calm over disorder. If crowds exhaust you, it is because your brain is built to think profoundly, not swiftly, to handle meaningfully, not responsively, to watch silently, not immediately interact with all things near you. One more intriguing layer is this. People who dislike busy locations are inclined to form bonds gradually but profoundly. Their social links are chosen and significant. They do not like superficial exchanges. They do not like insignificant din. They favor discussions that feel like mutual comprehension, not arbitrary exchanges. Busy settings provide volume, not value, and the mind that pursues value fails to flourish in that. There is also a biological element, something tied to sensory limits. Some individuals innately have a lower limit for sensory stimuli. Bright illumination, loud noises, quick motions, all of these impact more intensely, not agonizingly, but strongly. Their neurological system records stimulus in finer detail, which means their internal handling gets more dynamic in settings most individuals hardly perceive. This is why one person can say, "It is just a shopping center," while another individual feels mentally exhausted after moving through it. They are not responding to the identical experience. They are responding to the identical setting handled through different degrees of perceptiveness. And perceptiveness, once more, is not frailty. It is consciousness. You perceive the drone of discussions, the conflicting footsteps, the melodies from various speakers, the fluorescent lamps humming overhead, people moving by, abrupt laughter, erratic noise, changing motions. And your brain attempts to handle it all. Not because you desire to, but because that is your programming. One more mental layer appears when we discuss personal limits. Some individuals have internal limits that are readily overpowered by near presence to unknown people. It is not related to fright. It is related to preserving emotional and mental equilibrium. Busy locations break those limits, compelling your brain into a condition where it must stay vigilant without pausing. And lacking mental pause, even minor tasks get burdensome. This is why you may sense the urge to go outside for new air, or why you respire differently in crowds, or why you think more clearly after you are out. The instant you are back in open area, the brain relaxes, the body unwinds. You feel like yourself once more. Not because you fled something hazardous, but because you went back to your native cadence. One of the most misread realities is this. People who dislike crowds frequently have a firmer relationship with genuineness. They prize authentic being with themselves and with others. Busy settings feel like the antithesis of genuineness. Too many cues, too much din, too many facades, too many partly their exchanges. Your brain longs for settings where individuals feel true, stable, emotionally reachable. And crowds, inherently, draw people from themselves. They proceed through custom, immediacy, diversion. But you proceed through significance. This contrast builds an inner tightness that nobody else perceives, but you sense profoundly. There is also a philosophical aspect, the consciousness of selfhood within the group. For some people, crowds spark a silent contemplation. Who am I in this? Not as a personal crisis, but as a prompt of how tiny each individual is in the vast panorama of human motion. When you are a person who thinks profoundly, that consciousness can feel overpowering. Crowds prompt you about the world's scope and the loneliness inside it. But they also prompt you about your own internal area, the piece of yourself that no crowd can affect. This consciousness does not make you remote, it makes you inward-looking. And inward-looking minds frequently require distance to handle the burden of that introspection. So when you exit a crowd and at last respire, you are not just respiring air. You are respiring room for your identity to grow again. And here is the last reality, the one most individuals never admit. Disliking busy locations is not about retreating from life. It is about selecting where your vitality flows. It is about safeguarding the brain you have invested years developing. It is about respecting your perceptiveness, your consciousness, your emotional profundity. It is about experiencing life in a manner that matches who you are, not who the world anticipates you to be. Some individuals flourish in din, some flourish in calm. Both are human, both are legitimate, both are required. And if you are a person who favors quiet areas, serene settings, more profound discussions, softer moments, you are not evading the world. You are merely selecting to sense it more significantly.